ASMRk. I hope you're doing well. This is just a quick intro before the stories start. The stories will be whispered with a black screen. Today's stories are all about creepy encounters. Some are very disturbing, some very sinister. I think you're going to enjoy them. I hope they help you to sleep, relax, unwind. If you have any feedback, please do leave it in the comments. And please also consider subscribing if you haven't already. Okay, with that being said, let's sit back, relax, and dive into a world of whispers and chills. This happened in 2019 when I was living in Cincinnati. I just moved into a small third-floor studio in this older brick building on the east side of town. Not the best area, but I was fresh out of school, and it was all I could afford. The landlord was one of those don't bother me unless it's flooding types, so I kept to myself, worked late hours, and tried not to need anything. There was an alley that ran behind the building. I used it to get to the back stairwell that led straight up to my unit. The alley backed onto a chain link fence, beyond which was a stretch of overgrown grass and a few abandoned buildings, some old factory or a warehouse. That part of the neighbourhood was mostly dead at night. I first noticed her about 2 weeks after I moved in. It was around 11 PM, and I was coming home from a late shift. I had parked behind the building, cut through the alley like usual, and as I reached the stairs, I saw someone standing on the other side of the fence. A woman. She was maybe 30 feet away, just standing there. Pale coat, chin tucked down, hair dark and long. I couldn't see her face clearly, but her posture was strange. Arms tight at her sides, not moving at all. I paused for a second, then nodded, kind of an automatic greeting. She didn't respond. I went inside and told myself she was probably waiting for someone. Still, I locked both the stairwell door and the door to my unit, which I usually don't bother with. Next night, she was there again. Same spot, same posture. I stood still this time and watched her. She didn't move, didn't even shift her weight, didn't look around. She just faced the building, right at the third floor, right at me. I ducked inside and tried not to let her bother me. Maybe she lived nearby. Maybe she was mentally ill. Either way, not my problem. She came back the next night, and the one after that. After 5 days, I decided to see if she'd react. I stood at my back window with the lights off and watched. She showed up around 10:45. No phone, no cigarette, just standing there in the same pale coat, looking up at my window. I opened it and called out, "Do you need something?" She didn't answer. I waited a few seconds. "Hey, seriously, are you okay?" She didn't move. But as I was about to shut the window, I saw it, barely noticeable. She smiled. Not wide, just a tiny curl of the mouth, like she was pleased that I'd finally acknowledged her. Then she took a step backward, still facing me, and vanished into the shadows. I didn't sleep much after that. A few nights passed, no sign of her. I thought maybe I'd scared her off. But then one morning, I was leaving for work around 6:30 AM, and I found something on the back steps, a small scrap of fabric. It was pale, like part of her coat, laid neatly across the top step. I didn't touch it, I just stared at it before stepping around it and heading out. That night, she was back, but closer. Instead of standing behind the fence, she was in the alley itself, standing between the dumpsters, right in the line of shadow where the building lights didn't quite reach. Still facing up, still looking toward my window. I didn't go near the back stairwell. I went around the front and locked everything behind me. Around midnight, I was sitting in bed, lights off, trying to ignore the anxious buzz in my gut. I told myself I was overreacting. that she hadn't even done anything threatening. And that's when I heard it. From the hallway outside my unit, slow, steady footsteps. My building didn't echo like that. The only way footsteps would sound like that is if someone was just standing outside my door, walking back and forth. I held my breath, didn't move. After about 2 minutes, the footsteps stopped. Then I heard the soft creak of the stairwell door opening, and nothing after that. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there. I didn't sleep at all. Next morning, I called the building manager, told him someone had been trying to get in or wandering the halls at night. He said he'd checked the security cameras. Later that day, he left me a voicemail. Hey, I looked through the feed. Only person I saw go in or out of that stairwell last night was you. No one else on the floor. I was about to delete the message when I noticed something. In the background, faint, just barely audible, I heard a voice. A woman's voice, saying something like, "He doesn't see me." I replayed the message 5 times. It was definitely on the recording, not the manager's voice, not mine. I moved out 2 days later, didn't even wait out the lease. I never saw her again, but some part of me is still convinced I didn't find that apartment on my own, like someone had been waiting for me to move in. She didn't need to come inside, she was happy just watching. I don't even know how to explain this without sounding paranoid, but I promise I haven't changed or exaggerated anything. It happened 3 years ago, in late fall, when I was working part-time delivering cars for a local dealership in the Midwest. Mostly just moving inventory between lots or taking trade-ins to auction houses. This job had me doing solo trips at odd hours, sometimes early mornings or after dark if schedules were tight. The night this happened, I'd been asked to drop off a car at a satellite lot about 35 minutes outside of town. Nothing fancy, just a fenced-in gravel yard we used to store overflow. I got there a little after 8 p.m. The sun had gone down around 6, and the area was pitch black, just my headlights sweeping over rows of parked vehicles and the perimeter fence. There was no building on site, just a trailer office and a floodlight by the gate that wasn't working. I parked the sedan I'd brought, locked it up, and started walking across the lot toward the single security camera we had posted up on the far corner pole. I always made a point of waving at it, just so there was a record of when the car arrived. As I was walking, I heard something shift behind me. Gravel, a scuff. At first, I thought it was my own echo, but then it happened again, more deliberate, like a step. I stopped, turned around, nothing. Just rows of cars, all sitting dark, no wind, dead quiet. I scanned the lot, but didn't see anything moving. The shadows between the vehicles were thick. You could have hidden a whole person in there. I chalked it up to nerves and kept walking. The moment I stepped up again, I heard it again. Closer this time. Another footstep. This time slightly to my left. I spun around and shouted, "Hey!" Still nothing. No answer, no movement, just the crunch of gravel under my boots. I got that creeping feeling in my spine. You know, the one where your instincts don't care what your brain is telling you. Like something's off and your body already knows. I started walking faster, reached the pole with the camera and did my usual wave. Half out of habit, half hoping someone was watching the feed right then. That's when I saw the figure, across the lot, maybe 6 or 7 cars deep, between a red Tacoma and a black Elantra. Just a sliver of movement. Someone standing there. She stepped into the space between cars, just barely visible in the faint reflection of my headlights still glowing behind me. A woman. No flashlight, no phone, no uniform or reason to be there. Just standing completely still, hands at her sides. I couldn't make out her face. said, "Do you need help?" and took a step forward. She didn't respond, didn't move. I waited a second, then called out again. Still nothing. I didn't go any closer. Instead, I turned and walked straight to the gate. Didn't run, didn't want to make it obvious I was freaked. I unlocked the padlock, pulled the gate open, stepped through, and locked it back. Then I got in my drop-off driver's car, the one I'd arrived in, still running, and shut the door. As soon as I did, I looked up through the windshield. She was standing right on the other side of the fence now. Same expressionless posture, right in the beam of the headlights. I could see more clearly now. Her clothes were wrong, outdated. Her coat looked like it belonged to a different decade. Her shoes, too. Almost like she'd walked off a bus in 1991. But the worst part, her hands. She had scratches all over her knuckles, deep ones, like she'd been clawing at something, dirt or wood. I didn't roll the window down. I didn't say anything else. I backed out of the lot and drove. I didn't tell my boss, just said the drop-off was complete. I even checked the security footage the next day when I was in the main office. The part where I arrived was there. You can see me pull in and get out. You can see me walk to the far end of the lot and wave at the camera. But the footage stops right after that, just a flicker and then black. The next clip is me leaving the lot 3 minutes later, locking the gate behind me. The timestamp jumps, like the system glitched or something. But I was there the whole time, and so was she. I work overnights at a 24-hour university library. Before anyone says it, no, it's not glamorous. It's mostly watching sleepy students scroll TikTok between bursts of easy writing, reshelving returned books, and refilling the vending machine stock in the basement. But it pays better than most campus jobs, and the quiet time suits me. The library has 5 floors. Public access is floors 1 through 3. 4th is archives, locked after 6 p.m. 5th is admin and meeting rooms. The basement is just storage, boiler access, and the staff break area. The building's been around since the early 1900s. You can feel it in the walls. Everything creaks, pipes groan. You get used to it. I'd worked there nearly a year before anything strange happened. Nothing dramatic at first, just things not lining up. Small, dumb things. Like books I know I hadn't reshelved, showing up, perfectly placed. A reading light on in a corner study room that had been dark just minutes before. A spill in the stairwell that wasn't there earlier, with no one around who could have made it. Again, nothing big, but I'm obsessive about routine. I lock the 3rd floor restrooms at midnight, always. I check each stairwell from top to bottom on the hour. I have habits. And something started messing with them. It got specific. One night, maybe around 2 a.m, I was alone on the 3rd floor. The place was dead quiet. No students up there, no lights on besides mine. I walked past the main stairwell and noticed something odd. The motion sensor light inside had turned on. I stood there for a second, staring through the narrow window in the stairwell door. It was empty. The light flickered once, then held steady. I figured someone might have just gone up or down and I missed them. It happens. So I opened the door. And that's when I saw him. A man standing 2 flights below on the landing between the 2nd and 1st floor, facing away from me, perfectly still. I didn't move at first. I was startled, sure, but not immediately afraid. I assumed it was a student. He was wearing a dark hoodie, jeans, nothing strange. I called down, "Sir, library floors are closed below 2. He didn't answer, didn't move. I called again, louder. Still nothing. I started heading down, not too fast, just enough to make noise on the stairs so he'd know I was coming. He didn't turn around. He stayed perfectly still until I was almost to the landing, right above him. And then he took one step sideways and disappeared around the corner toward the first floor. Not walked, not hurried, one smooth step, like he'd been waiting for me to get closer. When I got to the first floor landing, the stairwell door was shut, but the hallway lights were off, and the motion sensor in the stairwell corner, the one that always lights when someone passes through, was dark. No one was there, and the front doors, still locked from the inside. No alarm tripped, no one had come in or out. I checked the cameras later. Nothing showed up on any of the stairwell feeds, just me. That was the first time. After that, he started appearing more often. Always in the same stairwell, always standing still, always vanishing when I got close. Once, I thought I'd tried to catch him. I kept the stairwell door cracked and waited. I stood back, out of view of the little window. 15 minutes passed, nothing. Then, the light flickered on. I peeked. He was there again. Same spot, 2 flights down. This time, he was facing me. I can't describe his face, not because it was horrifying or disfigured or anything, but because I couldn't hold the image in my mind. Like I'd look at it, and the memory would fuzz out around the edges. I only remember one thing clearly. He never blinked. I stepped into the stairwell. He didn't move. I took one more step. He turned, slowly, like he was being pulled by strings. Not startled, not curious, just turned, and walked down, out of sight. I chased him. I wasn't thinking straight, just ran after him, down the steps. When I hit the landing where he'd been, there was no sound, no footsteps. The door to the first floor hallway was still shut. I opened it. Nothing, no one. I told my boss about it eventually, not about the man, just that I was uncomfortable during rounds alone. She didn't seem surprised, just said something vague about old buildings holding on to things. Last week, I stayed late past my shift to help a new hire close up. She went to lock the 3rd floor bathrooms while I shut down the computer terminals. I heard her call my name from down the hall a few minutes later. When I got to her, she looked pale. I saw someone in the stairwell, she said. I asked what he looked like. She shook her head. I don't know. I don't remember. He was just standing there. Then he stepped away, out of sight. Neither of us finished closing that night. We left the 3rd floor lights on, locked the main doors, and didn't talk about it again. I still work there. I still see him. Sometimes I pass the stairwell and see that motion light flick on again. I don't open the door anymore, because now, every time I get close to the window, he's a little higher up than before. I don't really know how to categorise this. It's not a ghost story. No one got hurt. But it's the most disturbing thing that's ever happened to me, and I still think about it almost every night. Back in 2019, I lived in a quiet neighbourhood in southern Oregon. I was renting a small, older house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Trees, fences, dogs barking 2 yards over. Pretty typical. I worked remotely, so I was home a lot, and because of that, I tended to notice things other people might miss. Like who barked where, who walked their dog when, that sort of thing. One Tuesday afternoon, and I remember it was a Tuesday because I had a standing Zoom call every Tuesday at 1. Someone rang my doorbell. I checked my phone, 12:42 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I looked out the peephole and saw a man standing there, holding a clipboard. Late 40s maybe, button-up shirt, tan slacks, short cropped hair. The kind of guy you'd expect to be doing a property survey or taking meter readings. He didn't look up at the door, just stood there, staring at something on the clipboard. I watched for a few few seconds. No company logo on the shirt, no ID tag. I didn't open the door. He rang the bell again. Still didn't look up. That was weird to me. Who doesn't look at the door when they're ringing the bell? Eventually, he turned and walked away, down the driveway. I waited a minute, then opened the door and watched him disappear down the street. No car, no bike, just walking. I wouldn't have thought much more of it, except the next day, he came back. Same time, 12:42 p.m. Same clothes, same clipboard. He rang the bell, didn't look at the door, didn't speak. This time, I recorded it through the peephole. Just 30 seconds of footage of this guy standing there, motionless. After a minute, he walked away again, never looked back. That night, I posted the video on a local community board on Facebook, just asking if anyone else had seen this guy. A couple people commented, saying they'd seen a similar man walking around the neighbourhood, but no one had talked to him. The next day, Thursday, no visit. I figured whatever it was, it had passed. But Friday, he came again. Same time, same routine, only this time, he didn't ring the bell. He just stood there, staring at the clipboard. I didn't open the door, but I did something I regret now. I whispered through it, just said, "Can I help you?" No response, no movement. He didn't even flinch. I backed away and called the non-emergency line. The dispatcher told me they'd send a patrol car to sweep the area, but unless he was trespassing or causing a disturbance, there wasn't much they could do. By the time anyone showed up, he was well gone. Over the weekend, I kept the porch light on all night, slept with the TV volume low just to hear any movement outside. He didn't come Saturday or Sunday. Then, on Monday, something changed. I woke up to find a sheet of paper tucked into the crack between my door and the frame. No envelope, just a printed list of names. Maybe 20 in total, no title, no letterhead. My name was on it, first and last, correct spelling too. Some names were crossed out, mine wasn't. I tried to rationalise it. Maybe it was a misdelivered list from a neighbourhood survey or homeowners association thing, even though I rented and didn't know any HOA existed. I messaged the community board again, asked if anyone had received something similar. No one had. I didn't sleep that night. Tuesday came, and sure enough, at 12:42 p.m, he was back. This time, I called 911 as soon as I saw him. I told them he'd returned repeatedly, that I had a printed list with my name on it, and that I was getting scared. They said they'd dispatch someone right away. While I waited, I decided to do something reckless. I opened the door. Not wide, just enough to be seen. He didn't look at me. He just held up the clipboard like he was reading it. I said, "Why are you here?" He flipped a page on the clipboard, still didn't look at me. Then he whispered something. I couldn't hear it clearly. I said, louder, "What?" He looked up. His eyes were wide, bloodshot. And he said, perfectly clearly, "You're still unchecked." Then he turned away and walked. I slammed the door and locked it. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, he was long gone. I showed them the paper, the video, the message board thread. They took it seriously, or at least pretended to. Said they'd file a report and keep a car in the area. But nothing came of it. The man never came back. But here's the thing. 3 weeks later, I saw an obituary for someone who'd commented on my original Facebook post. A guy named Alan, early 50s, natural causes apparently. His name had been just one above mine on that list, crossed out. I've moved since then. Different state, new number, no forwarding address. But I've kept that sheet of paper, and sometimes, late at night, I pull it out and look at the names. 3 more have died, accidents, sudden illnesses. One was just listed as undisclosed circumstances. My name's still not crossed out, and every day at 12:42 p.m. I check the window, just in case. I used to drive for a delivery company back in 2021. It wasn't Uber Eats or DoorDash. This was more of a local courier service. I'd deliver documents, small packages, prescription meds, that sort of thing. The job was mostly solitary, which I liked. I didn't have to talk to anyone for hours at a time, just follow the route and drop things off. It was around 10:30 one night. Late, yeah, but sometimes the jobs went that way. I was driving through a neighbourhood just outside of Spokane. Rural suburban edge, lots of trees. Most of the houses were set far back from the road. There weren't any sidewalks, just ditches and woods lining the shoulder. Quiet area, real quiet. I just finished a drop-off and was looping back to the main road when I saw her. A woman walking on the shoulder, alone. That caught my attention because this wasn't a place you walked. Not at night, not with the forest on either side and no streetlights. She was wearing this long, off-white sweater that went almost to her knees. No jacket, just the sweater and what looked like pale jeans and old shoes. She wasn't even trying to flag me down, just walking slowly, like she had all the time in the world. I slowed down anyway, rolled down the passenger window a few inches. "Hey," I called out, "you okay?" She stopped walking, but didn't look at me. I pulled to the side, engine idling. She turned slowly and finally faced me. Her expression was blank, not tired or confused, just nothing. Eyes open, mouth closed, but no recognition in her face at all, just staring. I said, "Do you need a ride or something?" She didn't answer, and then she smiled. It was slow and stiff, like she didn't quite remember how. I was about to say something else when she started walking again, toward the car. Something in me said, "Don't." I don't know why. It wasn't anything she did exactly. It was the way she moved. Her arms hung straight at her sides, not swinging. Her knees barely bent, like she hadn't walked in a while, or wasn't used to it. She came right up to the passenger side window and leaned forward a little, still smiling. Her eyes didn't match the expression. They looked vacant. I reached across the seat and hit the door lock, just in case. She didn't try the handle, just stood there, her face inches from the glass. I asked again, quieter this time, "Do you need help?" Still smiling, she finally spoke. Her voice didn't match the situation at all. Too calm, too light. She said, "I've been trying to get home. That's it. No please, no explanation, just that." Something felt wrong in my stomach. I glanced down the road, no cars, just black woods in every direction. I asked, "Where's home?" She didn't answer. Then, without warning, she leaned forward and tapped the glass. Not loud, just a fingernail, quick and sharp. I flinched. She tilted her head like she was listening, but not to me. And then she said, "It's behind you." I turned, instinct I guess, but there was nothing behind me, just empty road. I whipped my head back around and looked at her. She was gone. I don't mean she was walking away, I mean she was gone. There hadn't been enough time for her to get out of view, even if she'd sprinted. But there was no one on the shoulder, no footsteps in the gravel, nothing. I sat there for a few seconds, trying to process what I'd just seen. Then I put the car in drive and got the hell out of there. I didn't stop driving until I hit the first lit intersection. Over the next few weeks, I told a couple of people what had happened, my brother and my girlfriend. They all said something along the lines of, Maybe she ran off into the trees, or you just missed her leaving. But I've gone back there since, once during the day and once at night. There's no path in the woods near where I saw her. The ditch is steep. There's no way she would have moved fast enough to disappear. And besides, I never told anyone the weirdest part. When she tapped the glass and said, "It's behind you," I turned my head, but I also heard something behind me in the car. Just the faintest shuffle, like someone shifting in the back seat. I checked, no one was there. But I still remember the smell. It was like rain and dust, like something that had been sitting untouched for ages. My window stays up now, even when I see someone who looks like they need help, especially if they're smiling. This happened to me in late 2022 when I was still working for a contractor doing post-fire inspections on residential properties around the Pacific Northwest. We weren't firefighters, we just went in after structure fires once the sites were deemed safe and documented the damage for insurance or demolition purposes. It wasn't glamorous, but the pay was decent, and I usually worked alone. This particular job was in a smaller town in Oregon, not far from Tillamook. I'd driven out there early in the morning to check on a cottage that had caught on fire 2 weeks prior. The blaze had started in the kitchen and spread through the attic before being put out. No fatalities, according to the notes, but the house was considered unlivable. My job was to photograph the damage, sketch the layout, and mark anything that might pose a hazard if someone re-entered. The address was on a dead-end street tucked against the edge of a forest preserve. One of those narrow roads with tall grass growing between the gravel. When I got there, it was quiet. I parked in the dirt lot next to the house, which was small, maybe 700 square feet, with white siding, now scorched black in places. The windows were all busted out, and the roof above the kitchen sagged. A red X had been spray painted on the front door, typical. I geared up, helmet, gloves, respirator, clipboard, and made my way inside. The damage wasn't terrible compared to some I'd seen. The fire had mostly stayed toward the back. There was a heavy charring near the ceiling, melted light fixtures, black streaks on the walls. But the front room and hallway were surprisingly intact. I went room by room, taking photos, sketching walls. No power, no lights, just a beam from my headlamp and a few rays of natural light coming through the busted windows. As I moved toward the back of the house, it got colder and darker. I had to crouch near the kitchen where the ceiling had partially collapsed. That's when I noticed the door. It was in the hallway, tucked between the bathroom and a storage closet. Narrow, painted the same white as the walls, but I hadn't marked it on the floor plan yet. I could have sworn it hadn't been there when I passed through earlier. I checked my map again. The layout said nothing about a third door in that hallway, but there it was, closed tight. No burn damage on it. The paint was fresher than anything else in the house. I reached for the handle, but it wouldn't turn. Not locked, just jammed. When I pushed on it, the whole door gave slightly, like there was something soft on the other side. Then I saw the red tag. It was stapled into the frame near the base. Bright red cardstock, the kind the fire marshals sometimes use to indicate unsafe rooms. But this one didn't have the usual "Do not enter" stamp. It had something handwritten in thick marker. "Do not disturb her." That stopped me cold. I don't spook easily in these jobs. Burnt dolls, warped furniture, collapsed ceilings, you see the lot. But this wasn't from the sitter or the fire department. It looked more like someone had scribbled it and tacked it in there after the fact. There was no "her" listed in the reports, no mention of someone trapped or unaccounted for. I backed off. Instead of pushing further, I snapped a photo of the tag and marked the door as sealed on my notes. figured maybe someone had been squatting there after the fire and got scared off. Happens sometimes. Still, I felt wrong, like I was being watched. I told myself it was just the enclosed space. I finished up and headed out. When I got back to my car, I opened the back to put my gear away and paused. There was a red tag lying on the passenger seat. Same cardstock, same writing. Do not disturb her. I hadn't brought it with me. I had no idea how it got in the car. All the doors had been locked while I was inside. I left immediately, drove all the way back to Portland without stopping. I didn't report the tag, didn't mention the sealed door. 2 weeks later, I was assigned a follow-up to that same property. I declined it. A different inspector went in. I only heard bits and pieces, but word got around that he quit the following week, left the job entirely, didn't give notice, just walked out after that inspection. I never asked what he saw